What's up, everybody? Sorry about that. I could not get my phone to cooperate with me. Can you hear me all right? Sorry about that. Technical difficulties. What's up, everybody? Sorry about that. I am not used to YouTube's shit. What's going on? Let's see if this is working here. Awesome. Welcome, D. Let's see if anyone else notices that I'm live. Oh, man. I was trying to get this thing, and I had it set up to shoot horizontally, and it said it will not allow that to flip my phone over, which is weird because the video is going to record and look weird because it's not in that mode, that TikTok, Instagram mode. But what's up, everybody? Welcome. Welcome, welcome. This is my first live podcast. Hey, Adriana, welcome. I finally got this thing online. Thanks for coming, everybody. Let's give everyone a minute. Maybe some other people jump on. I want to tell you guys about the conversation I had with Bobby Kennedy Jr. and some of the very interesting things that he said. He's a fascinating guy with a lot of knowledge. Really think that you have to spend most of your life outside of politics to accumulate true knowledge, because once you're in politics, you're just isolated and kept really, completely ignorant. It's almost like, reminds me of the way celebrities in Scientology get very isolated and kept from what that religion is all about. No offense to the Scientologists who aren't listening. What's up, Walter? Welcome, everybody. So, let me just put this out here, guys. I'm not venturing into political waters, and I'm not like openly declaring support. I'm just a big fan of Bobby Kennedy Jr. And I have been for years. And for those of you guys joining me who know anything about Bobby, he's a warrior. He's a trooper. He's like, his whole life has been David versus Goliath, but he chose that. And he talks about why he chose that, which is an inspiring story. He became an environmentalist. He loved fishing. I don't know if you guys know anything about his background or his past, but he's a fascinating individual, remarkable, and he loved to fish. I'm from Pennsylvania originally, and my dad used to take me fishing, God bless him, all the time. And he said that he watched, first he found out that he couldn't eat the fish that he was catching. And he said that really shook him. And then he used to go down and he used to love to watch the tadpoles that would live and swim by the pond he used to fish at. And he watched them die because of pollution. And he figured out that's what he wants to do with his life. And so he became an environmentalist. He went to law school in order to be able to do something about that, which is not an easy thing, nor it's a kind of a Herculean task to take on for anybody. But incredibly, he's a Kennedy, and he decided to do this. I think that's pretty remarkable. But he has. Listen, So what I was saying is, I am apolitical, and I always will be. I mean, life is political. So for people who are like, I'm not political, that's a little ridiculous. Everything is political to a degree, right? But I've been a big fan of Bobby for since about 2019, when I discovered him and his work, and then I learned about how his family has ostracized him because he's been outspoken against certain industries, which we cannot name on this platform. He's also outspoken about censorship, ironically. I think he's in a lawsuit right now with this platform that I'm on because they censored him and the White House told them to. I mean, the White House the White House uses corporations to do what they can't do, what the Constitution won't allow them to do. You know, and they can turn around and say, well, we didn't make them do it. We just asked them to do it. That's not against the law. No, but it's against everything the country was founded about. Anyway, let me tell you about some of the fascinating things that Bobby said. What, you know, he immediately was talking to us about the World Economic Forum. So amazingly, when a presidential candidate, when the first thing out of his mouth is a warning about BlackRock, City State, and Vanguard, when that's the first thing out of a so-called presidential candidate's mouth, when he's speaking to, albeit a small crowd, there was probably 15 of us. That's a great start. I mean, first of all, find me one other president who is openly speaking about what the World Economic Forum is trying to do to this country, and really every country, but this country in particular, because our freedoms make us a direct threat to their ideas and vision for the world. It's not vodka, it's water, okay? Don't get any ideas. It's not tequila either. Did he talk about the cult of Zionists, the black nobility? I mean, he didn't, Tom, he was speaking to me, and there was about 12 chiropractors there. So, but there was a lot of people who were I was surprised by the knowledge in the room, the people I talked to. He didn't talk about the black nobility and the cult of Zionist, or how he's working with their pawns. No, he failed to mention that. That should come as no surprise, Tom. That's not something you would ever hear a politician talk about anyway, but I think you know that. Anyway, you know, Bobby also talked about what's going on in the Ukraine right now, and how BlackRock, Vanguard, and City State have everything to do with what's happening in the Ukraine, which if you follow my channel, and if you follow me on Instagram and you hear me talk, then most of you are probably already aware of this, you know, what they're doing, because they've been doing the same thing literally since World War I, World War II, you know, and even before that, the French Revolution. So what's going on right now, and this was fascinating to hear, but Bobby was saying how in the Ukraine right now, every dollar, every billion that we give is not only, it's never going to be paid back, obviously, but what's happening is the United States is taking ownership, and he listed off a litany of, you know, precious metals, everything in the ground. What is Ukraine known for? Ukraine is known to be the breadbasket of Europe, right? That's its nickname. They say that if you throw a boot onto the soil in the Ukraine, that, you know, tomatoes will grow, whatever. But that's how fertile the soil is in Ukraine. It's some of the most wanted farm real estate in the world, second to none. What's happening right now in America? Who's the newest majority farm owner in the United States? Bill Gates. Who's Bill Gates a lapdog for? Who? The World Economic Forum and the globalists. Duh. I mean, Bill Gates is gopher boy, you know. He's their little henchman. God, part of me feels bad for that dude. He's just, and then part of me wants to, you know, beat him a little harder. He looks like he's been beaten up already. Oh man, I can't stand him. Anyway, Bill Gates, okay, right? So as of right now, we've taken ownership. And I say the United States, what I mean is BlackRock and Vanguard, you know, and City State, because they're funding this whole thing, you know. So they're getting everything. As as they do with every corporation and every industry that they have a stronghold in. And that is basically, that's a global thing. 26%, Bobby said. That's how much ownership we've taken so far. So, and I've been saying this right along, if you guys have been listening to me, we are doing to the Ukraine what we did in Germany right before World War II. I mean, Germany was forced to pay massive reparations for World War I. Who told them they had to pay that? Oh, that's right. The Treaty of Versailles and the bankers who sat on that. Who were those people? Half of them were Americans, well-knowns. They were some of the same people who were named in the Kennedy assassination. Go figure. How ironic. And they said, don't worry, we'll loan you the money and we'll invest in your economy. And slowly but surely, America started to take ownership of a lot of Germany's biggest companies. And the investments were heavy. And it was so great that, you know, the Rockefellers, the Rothschilds, of course, there is no Rockefeller without a Rothschild, okay? I think they were the second greatest economy in the world by I think it was 20, no. It was 8 years after the reparations started to be paid. It took them 8 years. And they were killing it. You know, remember Winston Churchill was praising Adolf Hitler? He's in the paper, quoted, they were all praising. They thought he was just the bee's knees. And the Rockefellers and Standard Oil, they helped get Hitler elected. And so my point is, we slowly but surely started to infiltrate and take ownership of Germany. And what are we doing in the Ukraine right now? Why don't we want the war to end? Why has Joe Biden, well, not literally Joe Biden. Joe Biden can't even read a teleprompter. He can't even read his cheat card anymore. Not Joe Biden, but why is the Biden administration, or the diaper administration, as I like to call them, why have they made sure that Putin and the Ukraine cannot achieve any modicum of peace? Twice they've made Zelensky tear up a peace treaty, which would have been very favorable to Ukraine. It should be obvious by now. I mean, money laundering, that is the United States special skill. On our resume, where it says special skills for the United States, there is make great war, bomb people, make bigger and better bombs, and money laundering. And we should be known throughout the world as the champion of money laundering. Anyway, so that was fascinating to find out that, you know, the reason why they call them loans is not because, of course, that they ever think they could possibly be paid back, because they can't be, and they never will be, but because it allows us to stipulate the ownership that we're going to take in the Ukraine's economy. So we're sowing the seeds. Not only are we in a proxy war with Russia, but we are sowing the seeds for a future war, direct war with Russia, because Ukraine will be assimilated and become NATO and be part of our alliance. And for those of you who aren't drinking the Kool-Aid, you already know most of this. You already know that the whole thing is, you know, everything that people are told is propaganda. And that Russia has been going on for, I don't know, over a decade now, you know, telling NATO to stop expanding. And that the double standard between us and them is obscene. I mean, it's astounding. Imagine if Russia was in Mexico, you know, do we think that they could win a war against us? No, and we can't win this war against them, and we know that. We know we can't. It's a war of attrition. You can't go into someone's homeland and think you can kick them out. And for those of you who think that, oh, well, Ukraine isn't really Russia's homeland, well, yeah, it kind of is. and it's right next door. I mean, would Russia be able to invade Canada? No, it's really not. It's impossible. And they don't want to win the war. They don't want the war to end. This is no different than Vietnam. It's no different than World War II. You know, I have this great video on my Instagram page, and it's of a whistleblower, CIA whistleblower, and he's talking about how we moved, and we were moving weapons to the North Vietnamese throughout the Vietnam War through Russia, and how we did that and that he, you know, how many times this guy tried to get a paper to report it and they wouldn't touch the story. I mean, it's the same. How do we get the Cold War? We leaked secrets to Russia so they could build a nuclear arsenal. We did that. I believe it was Victor Rothschild. I believe he actually got caught and they pressed charges. But I think he fled to Russia, if I recall that correctly. Remarkable, just remarkable. See, war is a racket. War destabilizes, and that's what this is about. So they're going to drag this on. It adds to the destruction of the economy, which is City and Vanguard, and he talked about the real estate that's being brought up. Let's see. There we go. Sorry, Tom was annoying me. Anyway, so he talked about BlackRock, Vanguard. He talked about real estate. He talked about what they're doing with inflation, right? And meanwhile, today I saw, or was it yesterday, I saw that mortgage rates have reached an all-time high. Now, it's not a coincidence that BlackRock and Vanguard and City State are buying single-family homes all across the country. They're on par to own 60% of single-family homes in this country by 2036, I think, was the number. I don't know, maybe someone else remembers. 2000, it might be 38, but it's obscene. And so there's a reason why mortgage rates are soaring while BlackRock and Vanguard and City State buy everything humanly possible when it comes to single-family homes in this country. It's not a coincidence. Only a coincidence theorist would make such a ridiculous claim. What else did he talk about? He was talking, people were asking him, you know, there was one guy there who said, he said, listen, he said, I'm a musician and I lost my job and I lost my livelihood and I basically lost, you know, he's been sober for 8 years and he was in recovery, and he was talking about how when 2020 hit, you know, Bobby was very outspoken because Bobby, being a trial lawyer, knew what was going on, probably before a lot of people did. And, you know, he had read everything that happened in those, let's call them medicine intervention trials. And he can read, you know, he knows how to read that, being a lawyer. And so he tried to tell people and they censored him. You know, the White House censored him. So if you're like me, I assumed, because I was, you know, being banned and suspended and censored off of other platforms. I wasn't on YouTube at the time, but I thought it was social media, you know, just going along with this obviously global money plan. And I knew it was a money scheme. I knew it was and of course it turned out to be the largest money transfer in history. I mean, devastating. Everything that we're seeing happening to the economy today began with, you know, the pandemic, period. I think it was $8 trillion that we didn't have. And we made 800 billionaires. That's the other thing Bobby said. What do you think the long-term plan is as to why they're buying up all the properties? Oh, that's easy, Cheek. So if you guys have ever listened to one of the most famous conspiracy theorists to live, his name is William Cooper, Bill Cooper. And he talks about this, about why they won't oh, that's the other thing I'm gonna tell you guys about. Remind me to tell you about what he told me about immigration and what he learned at the southern border, because you're not gonna believe that. It's astounding. It's terrifying. He was talking about how it's control. It's control. So you flood the country with immigrants, right? We've had, I don't know, just record-breaking number of immigrants. There's photographs of agents cutting barbed wire fence that the governor just had put up, and millions. Of course, because of the Biden administration, there is nobody home. The globalists are running the show. God only knows what they're having that senile dude sign. I don't even want to think about that. Presidents are dangerous when they have a nefarious agenda, like all the executive orders that both Bush presidents signed behind closed doors. And only half that list has come out, and it's atrocious. The way they have unseated the power in government from where it was supposed to be to where it is now. It's just disgusting. Imagine what they're having Joe Biden sign when the man will literally do anything he's told. There's laws against that. It's called elder abuse. You cannot take advantage of someone who is not mentally sound, whether he's the president or not. And that's what they're doing. And anybody, if you did an evaluation of Joe Biden, a true health evaluation, anybody who did an honest assessment would see that he's not capable. He is not mentally fit at all. And it's because he's old, and I think he's senile, and he's, people think he has the onset of dementia, and maybe he does. I don't know. Maybe he's just old. I don't know. But the dude doesn't know where he is half the time. He literally doesn't make any sense when he's asked to speak without his cards. And even when he has his cards, he doesn't know where he is. Anyway, I went off on a tangent. So the properties. They're buying up the properties so that they can control the rent, the prices. So that the young people, because who's trying to buy single family homes? Young people, right? How many, you don't have to go very far to meet someone who was like, yeah, we had an offer, it looked good, and then someone came in and just blew it out of the water. Well, it wasn't BlackRock that came in, it was one of the freaking 10,000 little subsidiaries, the no-name LLCs. The same kind of no-name LLCs that buy all the parking meters in a city at fire sale prices, or send Bill Gates in to buy all the farmland in America when they're at super low prices. They're making farming not the worst business someone could be in. Farmers have the highest suicide rates in our country. This is the other thing Bobby was telling me about. So the real estate market, farming, anything that would allow people to assert independence from the government, they're going after. And they're using this one crisis after the next as their means to do it. Because people are struggling right now, all around the country and around the world. The only place I saw that really seems to be not struggling is Russia. Russia is struggling for a lot of reasons, and I'm no fan of Putin. I know what a homicidal, diabolical maniac he is. But there's been no inflation in Russia. There hasn't been. I'm not like propagandizing Russia. I'm not for Russia. I'm not involved emotionally. I'm just telling you, I just saw a special of a person who was in Moscow, and she went in and she went grocery shopping, and she showed all the prices that she paid. and the prices have remained the same. And in fact, the Russian economy is growing. What does that tell you? Our economy is suffering. I mean, we are bleeding out. And we have sanctions. We're trying to get the whole globe against Russia. So much so that, I don't know if anyone saw the other day in Canada, they had a Ukrainian SS officer from World War II. They brought him in. And this is a dude who, rounded up people. He was an SS soldier, the two lightning bolts. And there was a standing ovation for this man in Canadian Parliament. Everyone oblivious. Ukraine. He's a Ukrainian soldier. He was 91 years old. This is how, hypnotized everyone is. And people just, everyone's been conditioned to think it's big bad Russia. They're wrong. They're bad. They're our arch nemesis. And of course, that's always been propaganda. But we've created that monster now. We've very much given them the power to be the super arch nemesis that we want. We need that. Just as in the 50s, it was communism. We have created one specter after the next. And when the specter fails, we create a true monster, as we did on 9/11, as we did with JFK, as we did with 2020 and the so-called health crisis. We create our monsters. The United States is phenomenal at it. And it's not just the United States, of course. Most of our brains are in Britain. Of course, the United States and the UK go hand in hand. You're in the Cayman Islands. Stuck to Q creators. Oh, that's interesting, Tom. Interesting. If I propose global controls play. I tell people all the time, Tom, I talk about, the Federal Reserve and what they have done and how criminal it is. And I tell people, if you don't believe it's criminal, go ahead and try and do what they did, and you're going to get arrested for fraud. You're going to get arrested and thrown in prison. Everybody who's tried to do what the Federal Reserve did, it was arrested. Man, so Jay, that's the other thing that he talked about. So let me tell you what he said about peace, and what he said about his father, and what he said about his uncle. Thank you for reminding me, Jay. So Bobby said when his uncle was in office, his uncle had a policy, and he would talk to his father about it. And Bobby would hear his dad talking to his uncle about it all the time. Their plan and what they did was they projected peace economically. They used the might of America's economy to project peace into the world, not military might. And John and Bobby were determined to try to pull us back from the wars. They knew the military-industrial complex had turned into, a hydra, a monster. They knew it was out of control because Eisenhower warned them, as he warned the world in his famous speech. And if you don't know that speech, you should really listen to it. It's more relevant and important than it ever has been. The fact that JFK Jr. is basically being silenced and ignored, it's unbelievable. I mean, people will say what they want about Bobby, but there's a reason why they won't give him a microphone. There's a reason why the Biden administration has refused him Secret Service. There is no presidential nominee in the last 55 years who has been a true candidate, who has applied for protection from a sitting administration and been denied, besides Bobby Kennedy. Now, what does it say about an administration when not only are they actively censoring their political opponent, but they won't grant him protection from physical harm? It's just atrocious. It is I just can't, I don't understand how we got to this place. And Bobby, listen, Bobby was under the gun before he ran for president. You can't go up against multi-billion-dollar industries and attempt to hamstring them the way he has and not be under the gun. Bobby has put himself, and you know, I'll tell you another story. This gets better and better, okay? And this is why I love Bobby. Somebody asked him, and I started to tell you the story, the person who was a musician who was shut down. They asked Bobby how he could possibly look out at this world after what has happened to his brother and his uncle. And A, not be scared, and B, imagine that he has a chance of changing it. And ironically, you know, Bobby started talking to himself about himself in as if his life had already finished. He said, you know, I lived a great life already. And he started to talk in past tense. And Bobby said on more than one occasion how he's not afraid to die for what he believes in. And I think his actions, normally I would dismiss that talk as machismo, you know, because a lot of guys say that. But when push comes to shove, I got to tell are you guys there? My connection is going in and out. If you guys can hear me, say something in the chat if I'm still connected. And I'm going to tell my kids to stop streaming. Let me know if you can. Okay, cool. Nice. Stop streaming Pokemon videos. Sorry, guys. I'm sure my kids are upstairs streaming a YouTuber who won't shut up, a lot like me, except he's probably talking about a game. Anyway, sorry about that, Jay. My kids are streaming something besides me upstairs. I'm gonna try to get them off. Well, damn. So, yeah, I don't know why you think Bobby is in a cult. You know, Bobby's been ostracized by his family very much. They didn't even show up for his announcement when he announced he was president. But Jay, let me finish what I was saying, because this is incredible. So somebody asked Bobby, you know, how he has hope and how he thinks he has any chance of winning. And you know, interestingly enough, he started talking about his life as if it had passed, you know, and he was like, listen, I never ever thought I was going to run for president. And he's like, look, I would have lived my life a lot differently. And anybody who knows about my youth and about what I've done will probably tell you that that's pretty obvious. You know, I would have done things a lot differently. But he's content. He said something I found phenomenal. You know, he's a pretty spiritual dude. He said, "I'm not attached to the results. I'm just happy to do my duty because I love this country." And to get up every day and push the rock up the hill. I'm sure many of you have heard him make that talk about, you know, Sisyphus. But he's quite content to do that. And he's not attached to any result. You know, and that's what he said. He said, whatever happens, you know, I love this country too much. And I want to return it to the days of when my father, and the kind of love that people had for America back when my father was running and my uncle was president. And I thought that was remarkable, the way he talked about himself like that. And he said on more than one occasion, he's not afraid. And I think, look, it's obvious that he's not afraid, or he wouldn't say the things he says, you know. That's pretty telling. It takes a crazy man. So let me tell you guys, this thing, he talked about the time he spent on the southern border, okay? Now, I had no idea. He talked about homelessness, and he talked about San Francisco. This is fascinating. So he said that the homeless problem in San Francisco, you know, he assumed that it was, man, it would be a different world, Jay. If the Kennedys had won that battle, if they had outfoxed those bastards, the world would be different right now. I'm sure of that. And that's why both of them were taken out. It wasn't just John, it was Bobby too. They knew too much about how things really work in this country. They were a threat, a direct threat. And in truth, Bobby is too. He should have protection. He should have Secret Service with him. He knows way too much, way too much. He's spoken about it many times. So two things. First, he talked about his oldest son is friends with this writer, and this guy did this extensive empirical study about homelessness. And you know what, we were talking about real estate and the prices of real estate earlier. And surprisingly, you know, Bobby, like me, I always assumed this too, thought that the homelessness problem in many of the big cities, particularly even in San Francisco, was due to drug addiction, mental illness, and you know, the things that you would typically ascribe to homeless people. It's about, this is what the study shows, it's about affordability. It's about people going broke and ending up on the street. Then they end up on drugs and with mental disorders. But what happens first is they go broke in this economy, in cities like San Francisco, where it's the prices are just insane. Why anyone would still want to live there is beyond me. I don't get it. But I found that very interesting, you know. So Bobby is looking very deeply into solving problems for people in this country. People. And he went down, he spent a few days at the southern border. And this is what he learned about that debacle down there. I mean, just astounding. This is water. It's not tequila. It's not Casamigos. No, it's good water. But this is crazy. Okay, so Bobby went down to the southern border and he was talking about how, you know, he expected the migrants that were coming through, that he was trying to talk to, and he was talking to the agents down there, to be from Central America, South America. That's not where they were from. So this is what he found out. The migrants coming in, at this point, were almost all men. They were South African predominantly. They were being brought over by bus, okay? Many of them were being brought over against their will. By who? By the drug cartels. So the drug cartels are going around, and clearly they're getting paid to bring people over by the number, right? Because why else would you literally kidnap people and bring them? Some of these people are being abducted, for lack of a better word. But he said it's a terrible situation. He said, and the cartels are behind it all. Now, it just begs the question, who is incentivizing the cartels to funnel people and bring them across our border in as great a number as possible, right? But when you see pictures of agents cutting barbed wire fences, you start to understand why. If the cartels are involved, that's really terrifying, right? Bobby said when he was down there, that's what he learned. It wasn't, you know, of course there's always some Venezuelans, but he said that there was a lot of people from South Africa who were being brought over by bus, that they already have a social security card. Wherever they got one, they don't know. He's assuming that the cartels handed them one. They don't have anything. They're brought over and dropped off, you know, and he was saying, I can't remember exactly what he said, but about what they did with them once they get them in. But he said a lot of times, some of the southern cities just put them give them a ticket and send them north, send them, you know, get rid of them, get them out of the city. Just insane though. I mean, so it makes me think about William Cooper, Bill Cooper, and how he always said, and he's right. He said they'll never stem the flow of illegal immigration in this country because the politicians have no power to stop it. It's the globalists, it's the cult, it's the skull and bones. That's right. Texas has been saying this for years, and I just spoke with a friend who lives in Texas who was saying this. She's like, "You have no idea. It's beyond frustrating." But Bill Cooper used to say, no politician has the power anymore to stop the stem of illegal immigration, because the globalists who are trying to shape this world the way they want it are, they, in order to destabilize a nation, you hit it from every angle you can. If you can flood it with immigrants because you got a senile old white dude in the Oval Office, by God, then it's a no holds barred. If there's no resistance, just go for it, and that's what they're doing. I mean, they're going for it. If the cartels are bringing over busloads of people from every country they can get their hands on people, then it's a free for all, right? Drugs, depopulation, economy, all of them. That's right, Tom. No, you're absolutely right. Skull and Bones, it's those kind of people who have designed this system and this agenda that you're seeing play out. And so the flood of illegal immigrants is not going to be stemmed or stopped. I mean, it may be stuttered and staunched, depending on if we can get someone in the White House who has half a brain, the slightest bit of sovereignty, and the will to navigate through these treacherous people, because they don't care, And in truth, many of the people who are being pushed over here and coming over here, they're being used. They're victims in a way. I understand what it means to seek out a better life, and some of them I don't blame, but there's a way to do things, and then there's a way to break the law, right? And they're always saying, I just posted this video, Bill Cooper says it great. They're always telling us we have to follow the law, but they're not following the law. They're not enforcing the law. Why is it that we have to follow the laws and they can pick and choose, literally right in front of us, which laws that they want to follow? It's horseshit. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's obscene. It's offensive, is what it is. It's a flagrant, right in our face, and it's infuriating. The hypocritical nonsense that comes out of this sold-out government. But what is the other thing he said? And also, they give them a Social Security card, right? They come over, the people are helpless. So you are, if you can get them to vote, and there's a lot of states now, blue states, that are pushing for no ID. They call that, if you have ID, that's voter suppression. If you demand ID and you verify signatures, that's voter suppression, man. That's racist, right? I mean, it's ridiculous. It's absurd, okay? I was trying to ask Bobby this question because I wanted to hear what he would have to say. I wanted to ask him how in God's name he was going to bring back election integrity to this country, because it's gone. It's gone. I mean, I'm not going to vote. I'm not even going to vote for Bobby. I'm not even registered to vote. There's virtually no way I'm going to vote, because I know my vote is meaningless. And I'm not alone in that sentiment. I go down to the barber. He says the same thing. I have friends of every ethnicity, and they're like, what would I vote for? Nothing changes. And no one believes that there's any election integrity left. So if you think this is, a go out and vote video, you're wrong. I'm not telling you to go out and vote. I'm just telling you that I got to hang out with one of my personal heroes. And I got to hear what's on his mind and what he's doing. He wasn't a politician up until 6 months ago. So he's still, I think, worth listening to, especially since he's spent his life in a court of law fighting against people that are destroying the planet and making people sick. And I don't like either of those things. I don't think any corporation, no matter how big, should be allowed to pollute the planet and pay to get away with it. And I don't think they should be allowed to make things that cause people to get sick and get away with it. And neither does Bobby. And Bobby's realized that, the best way to put a stop to that is in a court of law. And he's right. In a lot of ways, he's right. In a lot of ways, it's the only way that we're going to stop it. But, it's exactly, it's not just the vote. People don't feel like, and that's because people aren't stupid, that they're ever getting a true choice, I mean, there's a reason why the phrase elections, Krista, let me see what you're saying. I'm still going to vote. My way of denying them the privilege. I don't blame you. I was really in that camp because my twin brother's been telling me not to waste my time voting forever. And I'm like, yeah, but not voting is just saying, okay, I'm back. Sorry. My kids must have, yeah, that's right, Tom. I just texted my wife. I said, will you tell them to stop streaming? I know that they can't help themselves, Anyway, they're not even streaming me. They're streaming some other YouTuber. Anyway, yeah, man, Cheek, I'm not saying I won't vote. I'm just, at this point, it's really hard for me to imagine that that they're going to give Bobby a shot. And maybe if enough people show up and vote, they will. And I'm about to get my my everything straight with my license, and I'm going to have an opportunity to register. I may vote. Look, I'm the type of person. I had a very wise man say to me once, "The time to make up your mind about something is never," and that's where I like to live. I don't like to make up my mind. I don't like to close my mind about things. So I'm not saying I won't vote. I may vote. If I vote, I may vote for Bobby. I don't think they're going to give Trump a chance to run, to be perfectly honest. I've been saying that right along. I think it'll be a miracle if he gets to run. I think that they'll cause World War III before they let that man run for president again. And yeah. And so that's what I wanted to ask. You just reminded me, Cheek, again. Your comments are great. Let's see. Tell them. So once voting went electronic. Thank you, Madeline. You're exactly right. So I wanted to ask Bobby. I had my hand up, but I was in a room full of a bunch of chiropractors, and there were some heavy questions asked. But I had my hand up because I wanted to ask Bobby if they had called on me. I was going to ask him how he was going to bring voting integrity back, because I was going to ask him if the estimates say that if we went back to paper ballots, that it would cost around $400 million per presidential election cycle. $400 million. Okay, maybe a year ago that sounded like a lot of money to me. Not anymore, okay? I know that we're sending roughly $200 million to Ukraine a day. So what's $400 million when it comes to the democracy of this country? I wanted to ask Bobby if he would consider, or at least think about it, and maybe I'll still have an opportunity to do it if I get a chance to see him again. What if he would consider, because if we bring back paper ballots, look, people are still going to try to cheat, obviously. That's been going on forever. People are going to try to cheat, but it's a lot harder. It's a lot harder to get away with if you have paper ballots, and you have like 8 redundancy plans to keep everything in check every step of the way. It's going to be a lot harder to rig an election, a lot harder to cheat. And I wanted to ask Bobby that, but they didn't call on me. And I feel like would have been such a great question, but it would at least made him think about it, because electronically we're doomed. There's no way to stop cheating if voting is electronic. And that's the other thing I always say is like, what do people imagine is happening when the news tells you they're still counting the votes in the days, like, well, the votes are still coming in and it's probably going to be a day or two. Until what? All the votes have to be in by a certain time, right? Is that not the way it works? Am I missing something? If all the votes have to be in by a certain time, then what are we waiting for? That's right, Tom. Paper ballots, thumbprint. There has to be. What could be more important to a country than its democratic process, than true integrity, right? I mean, this is just mind-blowing to me. And I had a conversation with David Icke on my podcast about this, and he's absolutely right. He talks about this a lot too. What if they really wanted a fair election, they would bring back paper ballots. Everybody who has to know that as long as we're voting electronically, there is no way to stop whatever the outcome that they want to manipulate is. And what are they doing when they say, in another few days, we'll have tallied the votes? There's nobody tallying anything. It's a freaking computer. I don't understand who's tallying what. Jay, when we talk over here in the UK, Trump is always in conversation. Like we think he could run again. I could see him winning. From our point of view, some people think he wins anyway. Listen, I think Bobby would do a lot more for people than Trump if he got in office. That being said, I think Trump would do a hell of a lot more than, I don't even know what the Biden administration is doing, if they're doing anything at all. But if Trump runs, he has a very strong chance of winning. And I'll tell you what else. This is what Bobby said about Trump. And this is why I love Bobby. Bobby doesn't fall into the mud, okay? He finds a way not to attack and go into the divisive rhetoric and partisan, nonsense that people are just so habituated and come to expect. Bobby's a breath of fresh air. Bobby said, listen, he said, I have no doubt that Trump really wanted to drain the swamp and that he tried. He said, in fact, I know he did. But when you get into the White House, it's a tangled mess. I mean, it is a sticky web. And he said that, he put so-and-so in charge of the FDA. He put so-and-so in charge of the other thing. And that's he just went right into the revolving door. And he didn't really mean to, but, you turn someone around enough and they lose their bearings. You keep them distracted with other things. He said that, I think that Trump had good intentions and he tried to drain the swamp, but it's not an easy swamp to drain. He said, I've been fighting corporate corruption my whole career. And he's right. He has. Not many people can make that claim. You can say what you want about Bobby, but that's what he's been doing. He's been fighting against corporate polluters who have corrupted and lobbied our regulatory agencies his whole career. I don't know anyone else who can say that. I mean, I know lawyers who can say that, but no one who's running for president. Bobby's a nightmare for the way that the globalists have taken over society. Bobby is like, the reason why they won't give him the light of day, they don't want anyone to know about him. They want people to think he's like a rabid, crazy, anti-vax maniac. And he's not. He's not. He believes in God. He talks about the beauty of creation. He talks about, people get hung up on Bobby when he talks about climate change, but Bobby talks about climate change saying we need to start preserving the land. We need to start saving our waterways. We need to stop polluting with chemicals and the pesticides and the microplastics. Bobby knows what's going into the soil. He does know what's causing cancers. He knows. I know he knows. He's talked about it for years. And so people get hung up on the fact that Bobby uses the buzzword climate change. But Bobby has said over and over that carbon sequestration is not the answer. And of course he's right. Carbon sequestration is fucking absurd. Excuse my French, YouTube. It's absurd. It's like, don't even get me started. It's just, he is Brian. I agree. I know Bobby. I've been following him pretty well for the last 5 years, and so I've heard him talk a lot. And Bobby wants to switch the whole climate change. Don't get caught up on the word, but he understands that there is a mass extinction happening. That's not part of the propaganda. That's an unfortunate side effect of corporate polluters and what they're doing to the planet. And the state of health in America right now reflects that pollution very much. I think we are 63rd in life expectancy. We spend the most money on healthcare in any nation on the planet. And our life expectancy is far, far behind, third world countries, people who live in squalor and poverty. Why? Could it be our food supply? Could it be what they're putting in the air and the ground? You bet your ass it's that. Of course it's that. The obesity levels in this country are off the charts. You have the what's her name? She's just been elected. She's got every degree known to man, but she's talking about the obesity gene and all that. Anyway, yeah. What else did I miss here, guys? I'm sorry, I've been rambling on, but I promised to tell you about my night with Bobby, so I'm trying to stay true to my promise. Insane, was going economic earthquake. Yeah, it's true. The difference with Trump now is he knows how to play the game, and he knows who's in the zoo and where the bodies are buried. I don't know, Madeline. I mean, I'm not saying he doesn't, but sometimes I wonder because, he still has not come out, and I'm not sure if he has faced the facts about what became of Operation Warp Speed. He needs to be real about that. I did hear him say that he promised. I don't know if he was piggybacking off DeSantis, but I did finally hear him say that he would not be pushing anything as far as mandates and medical interventions. So that seemed like a change of tune for him. But he should be yelling it from the mountaintops. What else did I miss here, guys? Yeah, let me see. Technically, elections are supposed to be anonymous ballot casting. I know, Madeline, and in most countries they are. And in most countries, I'm not saying everyone else has democracy figured out, but voting is corrupt everywhere. Most places, anyway. But in most countries, you can go and you can vote for the person you want to win. You're not wrangled into a two-party divisive system. And I just saw a poll that said 63% of Americans would love a third party. 63%. That's crazy. I really like Bobby, but understandably his stance on the Second Amendment is shake. Walter, I'm going to acknowledge you're right about that. I have heard Bobby say things like he would I think he was asked, and he said he would never do anything that the people didn't want. But that's scary when it comes to the Second Amendment because, as we know, people can be propagandized to want and say and do things that are not in their best interest. And we saw a great example of that over the last 3 years, many times over. So, Walter, I'm with you on that. I will not... I did not like to hear him say that. I thought he would be a little more awake to... But, look, you can only focus on so many things at once. If you don't know that part of the agenda is the collection and the disarmament of the American citizen, then you may not realize the dangers of that statement. And I believe in Bobby's case, that's what it is. I don't think he realizes that the danger doesn't lie with the people; it lies with the agenda. And even the things that we're seeing with how they hype up all the shootings and everything's a mass shooting, and it's just glory, glory, glory to the shooter, so they can ensure that the next person is inspired to do one of himself, because we know that's a fact. The psychology behind these shooters and how they study previous shooters, and they know the more news media coverage, the more websites, the more they write about them, the more that they'll be found by the next person. Thank you, Madeline. If you're talking to me, thank you. Bobby touches on hot topics nobody wants to touch. That's right, he does. And that's why no one wants to give him a microphone, because he's not afraid to say it. I was listening to this conversation. I'm wrapping it up, guys, but this is crazy. Listen to this. This was from a podcast Bobby was on. God, I would love to have him on my podcast. I don't think my podcast is big enough yet, but The CNN reporter was like, I think it was, no, it was CBS. It was CBS. I mean, this conversation, I was cracking up. This guy goes to Bobby, he goes, and he had like a British accent, and he was, you know, you could tell he was like, I'll handle this interview. I won't let 9/11. And he's like, would you like to clarify those statements? What was off about 9/11? Everything that happened is very well documented. And Bobby was like, you know, Bobby's like, he's like, Building 7 came down and it wasn't hit by a plane. And the CBS reporter goes, that one of the buildings fell on it. And Bobby's like, no, it didn't. And he's like, the falling debris fell on Building 7, and we all know that caused structural damage, and that's why that building collapsed. And Bobby's like, listen, I don't want to argue about this. I didn't look into this, but that's not what happened. He's like, I don't know much, but I know a building didn't fall on Building 7 to cause it to collapse. And then there's silence, and then the CBS reporter is like, well, let me clarify. So no building fell on Building 7, but there was debris. And I was just like, my God, face palming myself and laughing my ass off, because, I mean, if this reporter was serious, how dumb, how stupid can you be? I'm just like, and Bobby was just like, look, I don't want to argue with you, but, you know, I know that what you're saying isn't true. I've seen the videos. We've all seen the videos. But this dude was like, he had Bobby on his podcast, and then he was just attacking him and trying to get him to spout conspiracy theories. But all he did was make himself look ridiculous and probably inform a lot of people who didn't even know Building 7 collapsed by itself to take a look at that. It's unbelievable, man. This world we're living in is crazy. It's crazy. The demolition was controlled. It was so controlled. I mean, I have this video I made, I put it on YouTube. I just put, and a lot of people have done this since, you know, I just put Building 7's free fall collapse from office fires causing structural damage next to about 35 demolitions. And it's exactly the same, exactly the same, exactly the same, exactly the same. Ludicrous that people could possibly believe that it was not controlled. Just, I mean, I make posts about it. If you guys follow me on Instagram, I have like so many videos about this, and people go crazy. People are like, I'm a demolitions expert. I'm like, no, you're not. No, you're not. If you think that you know that Building 7 didn't come down by demolitions, then you're not a demolitions expert. You're a liar. But it was on the news in the UK that it fell. That's right. Behind them, you could see that it hadn't fallen yet, right? And that's how you know that, and you know, the Bushes they've gotten really good at this over the decades. They got good at it. They had to get good at it. They were forced to get good at it when the first Kennedy tragedy happened in 1962, was it? You know, because they had to control the media very much, and they learned a lot from that. And then the war, you know, everything that happened, the Bushes were profiting massively off the Vietnam War, you know, and oil and everything else. But they got really good at handling the media. And they had the stage set for 9/11. Bet your butt they did. And they had their assets on call, man, eating them up, eating it up. They're just saying everything they told them to say. They announced the collapse of Building 7 before it collapsed. Literally, you can, if you go to my link, go to the link in my bio. I'm sorry, no, wrong platform. Go to my playlists on my channel and go to Faust Highly Recommends, and you'll find a playlist. And in that playlist is a documentary called The Anatomy of a Great Deception. If you want to see the shenanigans that they pulled off on 9/11, watch that documentary. It's still on YouTube somehow, but it's on my playlist. And if you like that one, go ahead and watch Everything's a Rich Man's Trick. If you want to learn the true history of the Bushes, the skull and bones men who run this country, the oligarchs, the people who have been dismantling this dream of a country in this beautiful world we live in, since they were born. You watch that movie. From Everything's a Rich Man's Trick. They're both in my playlist. You should watch everything in my playlist. I'm not gonna lie. That's why I highly recommend it. But listen, guys, I gotta go. Thank you so much for joining me. This is my first live podcast. I had some technical snags, but I wanted to share with you guys my the great time I had hanging out with Bobby and what I learned from him about what's going on at the border and all that. But I really appreciate everyone who joined me, everyone who contributed to the conversation. Check out that playlist, Jay. You won't regret it, man. Everything on there is worth watching. Thank you so much, guys. I appreciate you so much. I wish everyone a good evening, a good morning, depending where you are. Thanks for all the conversation, Tom, Jay, Brian, everybody. Appreciate you guys. I wish you all a good night. Happy Saturday, Sunday, wherever you are. And it's been real. Have you seen the Fifth Plane documentary? No. No. Is it called Fifth Plane? I'll have to check it out. Bobby for Prez, Brian, I'm with you. Thanks, guys. My love to all of you. Take care. I'm going to go tell my kids they can keep streaming Pokemon now.